I'm going to go all the way back to when you first started. I loved what you said. You said, well, it was a little dream that maybe one day there was a gallery out there. And that sentence is exactly why I'm here. So let's talk about that sentence.
Later. The dream probably was, I think I could paint. I want to paint. I wonder if I can. You know.
And that's where we start. That's where we start. Our story really is.
There's a part that I don't remember because my mom took me to, I took an art class at Birmingham Museum of Art. And I was probably, Elizabeth's age. How did she? No, I
11.
wasn't. No, I wasn't. Yes. I was probably more like 8 or 9. So it was Saturdays, it was newsprint, I remember, and it was just, and I did it for a few times. It wasn't like years and years. But, and I worked with paint, and I remember really liking that. But then I don't have a really memory, and I always colored.
Right.
But coloring books where I had the lines. And so it was more of focused attention rather than creative, I think.
Yep. Because you're goal oriented.
I guess maybe, but I did like the 64 box of Crayola crayons, and I hated them when they broke.
I found this out. Personalities of artists are reflected in their work. Like if you look at your studio space, it is very organized. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, then there's trash, and then they're lined up, and that's what happens. Like there's a, and others are different based on
who they are.
That's right. So Mom took you. Did you ask Mom, or did Mom think you don't remember? It just happened.
Well, I do remember this one thing. My mom had a best girlfriend. Her name was Ruby. And Ruby's house was very different from our house. Ruby's house had pottery and different colors. Yeah, I don't know if she said you should take her or what. I have a feeling that may have been an influence.
So one thing I want to make sure, you described Ruby's house, and you said it was very different from yours.
Well, our house was my mom's sister painted, and we had some of her paintings, and she did more abstract. My father was an architect, and she did these angular things that were, so we had original art, not a lot. And, but it wasn't fluffy and soft and I don't know, it was just a different house. I remember. Right.
It was angular and purposeful. And
so it was just...
Ruby's house resonated with you more, that environment. And maybe she picked up on that and was like...
Maybe. Or I don't know if she ever saw me color or draw. But I think Ruby probably had an influence on my mom to get me there. And I don't remember asking like something I begged for. I don't remember anything until like high school. I took art, but that was mainly not to take home ec. And then college, I wasn't focused there on art. When I would take vacations, I would always try to buy a piece of art where I went to remember it by. And then I went to college, and in my junior to senior year, between that and college, I'd saved all my money to go to Europe. And that's when I was probably the most immersed in architecture, art, because it was this tour where we went, 55 days, 13 countries. It was... So Louvre, and I really started being introduced to art and the variations and the kinds. And when I graduated, I realized I want to know more about art. And so I would, UAB in Birmingham, University of Alabama in Birmingham. I audited art history, and I took classes just to learn about who
So
they
there
were.
was just this drive. You were just interested in it.
Yeah, I can't. I was irritated that I would look at paintings, but I didn't know who did them, and I wanted to be. I wanted to know. I wanted to know who they were, and so then, gosh, got married. We moved to Atlanta. Started our own business with my business partner. And I always, again, this little dream of, hey, I think I want to paint. And of course, I'm terribly intimidated because my husband, Roy, who can do anything, paint anything, but he doesn't like to. I mean, if we have an empty space in the wall and we need a painting, he's always painted something because he's cheap.
And why paint?
Well, I don't know.
Which is a perfectly fine answer.
I don't know. Drawing seems harder and boring.
Mm-hmm.
But I figured you probably need it to draw in order before you can paint, and that was a complication that I hadn't figured out yet. But I didn't want to draw. 3-dimensional felt messy.
Mm-hmm.
Complicated.
And having architect dad kind of more angular structure, that was kind of...
Yeah, it's just, I just couldn't imagine how I would pull that off in my life. A kill or all this stuff. Physical.
Yeah.
I didn't see me as being that kind. You know, I have a friend who does found objects and welds and makes, she does incredible work, but I just couldn't. I like color, and I like gooey, and I like color. I mean, my current teacher, his thing is, tells all of his students, don't pet the canvas, which is what I was kind of doing. And petting the canvas means you kind of go over and you overwork, and you're small, you're not using your arm. And
so you got married, you have this company open.
And, working, 100 hours a week.
What happened to the painting stuff?
I would go to shows, I would look and buy books, but I started looking around for classes, and Atlanta, really doesn't have a lot of good choices. Things like SCAD, I thought surely they have a continuing education component. No. I found at the Art Institute that used to be, Woodruff Art Center.
Mm-hmm.
I took 2 different sessions, and it was a continuing adult education, continuing education.
So marry that up with where you were career-wise. Company started in 100-hour weeks, or just start in how many years from college to Art Institute class, roughly?
Oh, I'd have to do some math on that. Let's see. If I graduated from 77 in high school, that's college. So got married in 84. 90 is when we moved to Atlanta. So just for easy math, say 20 years.
You're right.
So that this Art Institute, it was painting live models because I thought I wanted to do portraits. And so I walked into this class, never taken really formal training. And that's what I thought this was. It was going to be, because it's art. And it's got a live naked model in the middle, and there's 20 people around, and everybody brings their stuff. And they're all, palettes with, you could tell that mine was clean and new, and everybody else's was used and loved. Right. And so, and I found out, painting people are pretty hard. And maybe I shouldn't have tried that first.
So this class was on weeknight. So after work, and you get home.
Rush.
Right.
After, so I could leave my car parked where it was because I was close to where the class was, and I would carry my stuff down, go to class, and then have to go back. And I wouldn't get home because it was a 3-hour class. So say it started at 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah.
So you'd get home 10:30, 11.
Yeah.
So that was the class once a week. Were you also painting?
Not then. Because it was a live model, so it was kind of real time. But then I quit because the instructor, I didn't think she wasn't a good teacher, and I think most of the people had some kind of experience, and they were really needing a studio and a model available.
Right.
So I was at a different place.
Yeah.
And so that didn't work out. And so then I started saying, well, what else can I do if I can't do people? But that would help get me to people. So I said, well, what else is round? And I said, fruit. So I started painting round fruit. And it all had to be like above, or I couldn't do bananas for some reason. I mean, I only could do round fruit.
So you were in the dark, just painting.
Yeah, I was just painting. I would just either find a picture in a magazine, or I would set up by pairs at the grocery store and just try to figure it out. And so I did this for a while, and this is when Deb DeWitt and Evelyn and there was a school in
Redmore.
Yes, and they had an art show, and so I got in, and they did too, and so I did my round fruit. So I had a show then, and I sewed like 4 pieces. But I wanted to continue, but I couldn't replicate, and I was really irritated and frustrated because it was just a waste of time to do one that I liked, and they're all very different. And this is like one of my first primitive,
right,
round stem. That must be a shadow.
Right.
This is very flat. It looks like cardboard. But so I was learning to blend. This is probably a later one, and this one. But now I know that you don't find every single edge. A photograph would capture every edge, but that's the beauty of photography. But a painting should be different. Or, some people who want to paint photorealistic, that's a
different
style.
Yeah. So you had the art show with the school.
And then by that time, we had sold our business to this global PR agency, which, my job was this North America role, and so I would go to New York.
So what was your title at that time? This is important.
Head
of North America. Yeah, right. So you're running a business that you started, sold it to a bigger conglomerate who then wanted you to continue the success you did with the company while you're trying to paint fruit.
Yeah. So I would, by the time when I left that art institute before I could find a teacher, that was probably a pretty big gap. And
you just stayed interested, but you didn't have hand to brush to canvas, right?
No, but I would ask Roy, like this easel. I said, I want an easel, and it would be, but when are you going to paint? You don't come home at night. You're constantly working. It's just like I want an easel.
I just want the hope of an easel. Yeah, the promise of an easel.
It's my mind works in that. In order to that little dream, there were things that would have to happen. You'd have to have a space. You'd have to have equipment. You'd have to know things like a method and a technique. You'd have to have, what's my favorite brush? I don't know. There's a cajillion manufacturer brushes. What's your favorite?
Industry change, then company changing with, and all of that, and you're taking that on. You want an easel. So were you happy?
Yes. I love clients. I love solving problems. And I do think that when the Karlenne that like that and the Karlenne that likes this, it's really the same thing in that I enjoy as much thinking about what image I might do, how would I design it, how would I, figuring it out, doing the no tan that I showed you, doing that paint can app, and thinking through and how do I organize my photos so I can be better at it. So it's solving different kinds of problems or figuring things out that I don't know. Or what's worse is I wouldn't get back to the hotel after room service was closed and I didn't eat. And so it was full throttle. But when I started seeing that retirement, at some point I was gonna need to make my husband a priority because we don't have children.
Mm-hmm.
He worked and loved his work too for a long period of time, most of the time to the end. And so we both were focused, intense work people and writing down and ramping up. And during this time period, my mom got really sick too. And so I had to stop and refocus on that.
But you were used to shelving it for a minute.
Yeah. And then going back. And so, and this teacher that I found had a very structured method, and that met a lot of needs.
And it probably was comfortable for you because you're used to structure.
And I could see that first you work on this painting, you do this painting, and then you do this painting. And at this painting we're going to learn these 3 things. And at this painting we're going to learn these 3 things. And so, okay, all right, next. And I was...
It resonated with
focused.
you. So this is 2 days a week ish?
Mm-hmm. Oh, not for 5 years, not till like the last 3. And then when I did retire, then I could paint on other days.
Mm-hmm.
But during retirement, like when I was still working and taking his class and doing these masters, I had this hunger of, what I want to paint, I want to apply and see and test it.
You were ready.
I was ready. And so then I started painting my own things. So like this one here was one of the ones that I did on my own. And
what did that feel like?
I mean, it felt great, but
did you know it was good? Like, did you see it and go, I'm actually pretty good at this?
Well, that one was, I did the one in the kitchen first, and I really liked it. It's really hard for me to not sit here and lick the canvas with this little tiny brush and make sure that line is perfect. And
right.
Then when you get away and you go, well, that looks like crap. If I'd seen the whole thing, because that's not even the important part. But I didn't have those skills. And my teacher was a licker. He could do incredible, perfect portraits. So if you're looking at your face and your nose coming forward and the shadows and the ears going back and how the color wraps, and he can absolutely capture the likeness and the tone of skin like unbelievable. But that's not how I want to paint. I don't want to paint perfect. If a flesh tone is like this guy,
right?
He's in a dark space. I mean, that's not a pretty flesh tone,
right?
But it's accurate for him. But it's not. It's moving
yep.
and blurry, and I like motion. I needed technique. I needed to understand color, how the color worked. I needed to hear what people talked about the brushes. I mean, I didn't have opinions about what turpentine to use. I didn't. Do you use paper towels or do you use rags? I mean, there's so much stuff that goes with it, and I didn't have a point of view. I could do it fast, and if I only had to learn 3 things, then what were the 3 things? I was good about learning what to learn.
And shutting the noise and all of that out.
And not worry about, is it a great painting or not? It would, it wasn't about the painting. It was about, I was going to learn how yellow worked, or how the red apple worked. How do you make a red apple look red, but in the shadow it's purple.
With what?
And I just had this impatience, but when can I apply it? When can I start applying? When do I flip the trigger to exercises versus my art?
Is that what creates a safe canvas for you? Is I know how red turns into purple in a shadow, and I know not to do this, but to do this, or is that
it helps and hurts. It helps in the fact that I have confidence that I've been exposed to it, but I'm still don't have confidence in knowing my choices. And I knew that when you go into a gallery and you have 5 or 6 artists and you see this corner is artist A, this corner is artist B, and you know it's artist A because the body of work is similar.
Mm-hmm.
There's a thread that runs through it, either style or color or paint. I didn't have one. What's my style?
Right, and as you self-assigned, these are voices that you've been gathering purposefully to kind of teach you. So you have a cacophony of different.
And by self-assigning these subjects, the first thing was restaurants. Roy and I go here, take a picture.
Right. You've been foodies, right? You took a cooking class in Italy, or didn't you?
Yeah. So that's where it had light and shadow and people, and so it had a lot of and patterns. I like patterns. So it was an environment or a venue that captured a lot of the things that I like.
So you're becoming your own instructor at this point because you feel like you have enough. I'm putting words in your mouth. So because you have enough fodder to then create your own, you create your own kind of voice.
I was very impatient to start applying and to help start figuring it out because if I was becoming good at copying brushstrokes.
Technique.
Uh-huh.
Do you feel like now, especially when people don't see it as readily as you do you feel like you have your own voice, eyes, and everything now?
I do.